Marcus Williams checked his watch as he stepped out of the elevator. He was 15 minutes early, just as he planned. The 14th floor of Sterling Financial Group looked expensive. Everything was clean and modern. Glass walls separated the offices. The floors were so shiny he could see his reflection. He adjusted his tie and took a deep breath. He had prepared for this interview for weeks. His resume was perfect. His references were strong. He had an MBA from Harvard and 5 years of experience at one of the best consulting firms in the country. This job at Sterling Financial Group would be a big step forward in his career. Senior financial analyst. The position paid well and came with good benefits. More than that, it would prove he belonged at this level. A young woman at the reception desk smiled at him. "You must be Mr. Williams. They're ready for you in conference room B just down the hall to your right." Marcus thanked her and walked down the hallway. His shoes made soft sounds on the polished floor. Through the glass walls he could see people working at their desks. Most of them were white. He noticed this but pushed the thought away. He was here because of his skills, his education, his hard work. That was all that mattered. The conference room was large with windows that showed the city below. 3 people sat at a long table. 2 of them stood up when he entered. The third, a woman, barely looked up from her papers. "Marcus Williams, good to meet you," said the first recruiter. She was a white woman in her 40s with blonde hair pulled back tight. Her suit was gray and looked expensive. "I'm Jennifer Martinez, senior recruiter. This is Brad Cooper, also from our recruiting team." Brad was tall with brown hair going gray at the sides. He wore a blue suit and kept his arms crossed as he nodded at Marcus. He didn't smile much. His handshake was quick and weak. "And this is Sarah Chen from Human Resources," Jennifer continued. Sarah finally looked up and gave a small wave. She looked uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be there. Marcus sat down across from them. He placed his leather portfolio on the table and pulled out extra copies of his resume, even though he knew they already had it. It was something his mentor had taught him. Always be prepared. Always be professional. "So, Marcus," Jennifer began, looking at the papers in front of her, "we've reviewed your application materials. Very impressive credentials." She said it in a way that sounded nice, but something felt off. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Harvard Business School. Whitman Consulting. Really quite something." "Thank you," Marcus said. "I've worked hard to build my skills in financial analysis and risk management. I saw that Sterling is expanding its investment division, and I believe my experience would be valuable." Brad leaned back in his chair. He was looking at his phone under the table. Marcus could see the screen's glow reflected in Brad's eyes. Right, Brad said without really listening. "So tell us about yourself. Where are you from originally?" It was a normal question, but the way Brad asked it made Marcus pause. There was something in his tone, something that suggested the question was about more than just where Marcus grew up. "I'm from Chicago," Marcus answered. "South Side. I went to Whitney Young High School, then Stanford for my undergraduate degree." "Stanford?" Jennifer repeated. She exchanged a quick look with Brad. "That's quite a journey. From the south side of Chicago to Stanford. How did that happen?" Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He had answered this question many times before. "I had good grades and test scores. I was involved in student government and played basketball. I earned a scholarship." Of course," Jennifer said quickly. "We're just curious about your background. You understand? We like to get to know our candidates as people, not just resumes." Sarah was writing something down. Marcus couldn't see what it was. She kept her eyes on her paper and didn't join the conversation. Brad finally put his phone away. "So at Whitman Consulting, what exactly was your role?" "I mean, consulting firms often have lots of people working on projects. What did you specifically do?" Marcus knew what Brad was really asking. He had heard it before in different forms. The question behind the question was always the same. Did you really do this work, or were you just there to fill a quota? "I led the financial analysis for 3 major restructuring projects," Marcus explained. His voice was calm, but inside he was already tired. "The Henderson portfolio was my largest project. I managed a team of 4 analysts. We identified $15 million in cost savings and restructured their debt to improve their credit rating." "You managed the team?" Brad's eyebrows went up. "At your age?" "I was qualified for the position," Marcus said. He could feel heat rising in his chest, but he kept his face neutral. "My previous work had prepared me for that level of responsibility." Jennifer jumped in. "We're not questioning your abilities, Marcus. We just want to understand your experience. This position at Sterling requires someone who can work independently, someone who can make decisions without a lot of supervision, someone who can represent our company to clients. The way she said represent our company hung in the air. Marcus understood what she meant. She was worried about how he would look to their clients. She was worried about his skin color. I've worked with clients at every level, Marcus said. His jaw was tight now. CEOs, CFOs, board members. I've presented to Fortune 500 executives. I understand how to communicate effectively in professional settings. Oh, I'm sure you do, Jennifer said. Her smile was still frozen in place. We just need to make sure there's a cultural fit. Sterling has a very particular environment, very established, very traditional in some ways. Brad nodded along. Right. We're not looking for someone who's going to come in and try to change everything. Someone who's going to be pushing agendas or making waves. Marcus set down the pen he had been holding. Agendas. I'm here to talk about financial analysis, not agendas. Of course, Brad said. But he didn't sound sincere. We just mean that our team works a certain way, and we have systems in place. We need someone who can adapt to our culture, not someone who's going to challenge it. Sarah was still writing. Marcus wondered if she was taking notes about what they were saying, or if she was just trying to look busy. Either way, she wasn't helping. Jennifer leaned forward. Let me ask you something, Marcus. How do you handle feedback? If someone more experienced gives you advice about how to approach something, how do you respond? It was another loaded question. Marcus could hear what she was really asking. Would he stay in his place? Would he accept being talked down to? I value feedback from colleagues at all levels, Marcus said carefully. I believe good ideas can come from anywhere. I also believe in speaking up when I see problems or opportunities for improvement. Brad and Jennifer exchanged another look. This one lasted longer. Brad shook his head slightly. It was a small movement, but Marcus saw it. The morning sun was getting brighter through the windows. It should have felt warm and promising. Instead, the room felt cold. Marcus had been in the interview for only 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. He knew how this was going to go. He had been here before, in different offices with different people asking similar questions in different ways. But this was supposed to be different. Sterling Financial Group talked about diversity on their website. They had pictures of people from different backgrounds. They said they valued inclusion and merit. But sitting in this conference room, facing these questions, Marcus realized that the words on a website meant nothing if the people doing the hiring didn't believe them. He thought about standing up and leaving. He could do that. He had other interviews scheduled. Other companies wanted to talk to him. But something made him stay. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the principle of it. Or maybe he just wanted to see how far they would go. Jennifer was looking at his resume again. I'm curious about your time at Harvard. That's quite an achievement. Did they have any special programs that helped you succeed there? Any support systems? And there it was. The question Marcus had been waiting for. The one that suggested he couldn't have made it to Harvard on his own merit. The one that implied he needed special help because of who he was. Marcus took a slow breath. He looked Jennifer directly in the eyes. I was admitted to Harvard Business School because of my GMAT scores, my work experience, and my undergraduate record at Stanford. The same as every other student. I succeeded there because I studied hard and did the work. Right, Brad said. He was looking at his phone again. We're just trying to get the full picture. The full picture. Marcus almost laughed. They had the full picture right in front of them. His grades, his test scores, his work history, his recommendations. Everything they needed was on that resume. But none of it mattered because they had already decided something about him the moment he walked in the door. Sarah finally spoke. Her voice was quiet. Maybe we should move on to questions about the specific role. Jennifer ignored her. Marcus, let's talk about communication style. How would you describe the way you interact with colleagues? Are you more direct or more diplomatic? Another trap. If he said direct, they would call him aggressive. If he said diplomatic, they would question his leadership ability. There was no right answer. Marcus was about to respond when something caught his attention. Through the glass wall, he could see someone standing in the hallway. Marcus had been answering questions for 30 minutes now. Each question felt like a test that had nothing to do with his actual job skills. Jennifer kept asking about his communication style. Brad kept questioning his experience. Sarah kept writing notes but never spoke up to redirect the conversation. So you mentioned you led a team at Whitman Consulting, Brad said. He was leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed. How did your team members respond to your leadership? Any challenges there? Marcus knew what Brad wanted to hear. He wanted to hear about conflict, about people who didn't respect Marcus's authority, about problems that would confirm whatever assumptions Brad had already made. My team performed well, Marcus said. His voice was even and professional. We met all our deadlines and exceeded our targets. I received positive feedback from both my team members and my supervisors. But there must have been some difficulties, Brad pressed. Nobody leads a team without some pushback, especially in high-pressure situations. Every team has challenges, Marcus admitted. But we worked through them professionally. That's part of leadership, addressing issues directly and finding solutions. Jennifer jumped back in. And when you say directly, what does that mean to you? Some people can be too direct, too aggressive. That doesn't always work well in corporate environments. There it was again, aggressive. Marcus had heard that word applied to him before, to other black professionals he knew. It was a word that seemed to follow them around. When white colleagues spoke up, they were confident and assertive. When black colleagues did the same thing, they were aggressive. I believe in clear communication, Marcus said carefully. I state problems clearly and propose solutions. I listen to other perspectives. I don't believe that's aggressive. I believe that's professional. Brad made a sound that might have been agreement or disagreement. It was hard to tell. He was looking at his phone again. Marcus wondered if Brad was even interested in this interview or if he had already made his decision. Sarah shifted in her seat. She looked uncomfortable. Marcus noticed she kept glancing at the door. Maybe she wanted this interview to be over as much as he did. Jennifer pulled out another sheet of paper. Let's talk about cultural fit for a moment. Sterling Financial Group has a very specific culture. We've been around for 50 years. We have traditions, ways of doing things. How do you feel about working in an established environment like that? Marcus chose his words carefully. I respect tradition and experience. I also believe that every organization needs to grow and adapt. The best companies balance respect for their history with openness to new ideas. New ideas, Brad repeated. He finally looked up from his phone. What kind of new ideas are you talking about? Better financial models, more efficient processes, ways to serve clients better, Marcus said. That's what financial analysts do. We look for improvements. But not changes to the fundamental culture, Jennifer said quickly. We're not looking for someone who's going to come in and start questioning how we do things. Someone who's going to push their own agenda. That word again, agenda. Marcus felt his patience wearing thin. I don't have an agenda beyond doing good work. I'm not sure what you're implying. We're not implying anything, Jennifer said. Her smile was still fixed in place. We're just being clear about our expectations. This position requires someone who fits in, someone who understands our values. And what are those values? Marcus asked. He knew he was being direct now. Maybe too direct by their standards. But he was tired of the games. Jennifer looked caught off guard. Well, excellence, integrity, professionalism. Those are my values too, Marcus said. That's why I'm here. Brad leaned forward. Look, Marcus, let me be straight with you. We've had diversity initiatives before. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. We need to know that you're here because you can actually do the job, not because you're filling some quota. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's pen stopped moving. Even Jennifer looked uncomfortable for a moment. Marcus felt his heart beating faster. His hands were clenched under the table where they couldn't see. I've never been a quota, Marcus said slowly. Each word was careful and controlled. Every position I've earned has been based on my qualifications, my test scores, my performance, my results, not quotas. Of course, Brad said, but he didn't sound apologetic. I'm just saying that we need people who earn their place here, not people who expect special treatment. Marcus took a deep breath. He wanted to stand up and walk out. He wanted to tell them exactly what he thought of their questions and their assumptions. But he had been trained better than that. He had learned to control his anger, to stay professional even when others weren't. I've never expected special treatment, Marcus said. I expect fair treatment. There's a difference. Jennifer tried to move the conversation forward. Let's talk about your experience with client relationships. At Sterling, our analysts work closely with high-net-worth clients. People with very specific expectations. How comfortable are you in those environments? It was another coded question. What she was really asking was whether Marcus could interact with wealthy white clients without making them uncomfortable, whether he would know his place. I've worked with executives and wealthy clients throughout my career, Marcus said. I understand how to build relationships based on trust and expertise. My clients at Whitman were satisfied with my work. That's why I have strong recommendations. But those were consulting relationships, Brad said. This is different. These would be long-term clients, people who might have certain expectations about who they work with. Expectations based on what? Marcus asked. He knew the answer, but he wanted Brad to say it out loud. Brad shifted in his seat. Just expectations, comfort levels. You know how it is. No, I don't know how it is, Marcus said. His voice was still professional, but there was an edge to it now. Please explain, Jennifer jumped in again. What Brad means is that some clients prefer to work with people they perceive as similar to themselves. It's not right or wrong. It's just human nature. We need to be aware of those dynamics. So you're saying some clients might not want to work with me because I'm black? Marcus said flatly. He was done dancing around it. That's not what we're saying, Jennifer said quickly. We would never suggest that. But you just did, Marcus replied. Sarah finally spoke up. Her voice was quiet and nervous. Maybe we should take a break? We don't need a break, Brad said. He was getting defensive now. We're just being honest about the realities of this business. Marcus seems like a smart guy. He should understand that. What I understand, Marcus said, is that you've been questioning my qualifications since I walked in here. You've asked where I'm really from, how I got into Stanford and Harvard, whether I actually did the work on my resume, whether I have agendas, whether clients will be comfortable with me. Those aren't normal interview questions. Those are standard culture fit questions, Jennifer insisted. No, they're not, Marcus said. I've been through plenty of interviews, real interviews where people asked about my skills and experience, about financial modeling and risk assessment, about actual job responsibilities. You've barely asked me anything about the actual work. Brad stood up. Look, if you're not comfortable with our interview process, maybe this isn't the right fit. Maybe it's not, Marcus agreed. He started to gather his papers. He had stayed longer than he should have. There was no point in continuing this. Wait, Sarah said. She looked panicked. Let's just calm down and calm down? Marcus looked at her. I've been calm this entire time. I've answered every inappropriate question professionally. I've stayed polite while being disrespected. What exactly do you want me to calm down from? Sarah's face turned red. She looked down at her papers again. Jennifer tried one more time to take control. Marcus, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're just trying to be thorough in our evaluation process. No misunderstanding, Marcus said. You've made your evaluation. You made it before I even sat down. This was never a real interview. That's not fair, Brad said. We've given you plenty of time to present yourself. Present myself? Marcus let out a short laugh. You mean perform? Show you that I'm safe? That I'll stay in my place and not challenge anything? Nobody said that, Jennifer protested. You didn't have to say it, Marcus replied. Every question you've asked has said it for you. The room went quiet. Jennifer and Brad exchanged looks. Sarah was staring at her papers like they might save her from this situation. Marcus started putting his resume copies back in his portfolio. He had other opportunities. Better companies. Places where his skills would be valued instead of questioned. As he zipped up his portfolio, Brad spoke again. You know, this attitude isn't going to help you anywhere. Maybe you should think about how you present yourself in interviews. Marcus stopped. He looked up at Brad. My attitude? I've been nothing but professional. I've answered your questions. I've stayed polite. What attitude are you talking about? You're being defensive, Brad said. Aggressive, even. That's what I mean about cultural fit. We need people who can take feedback without getting emotional. Emotional, Marcus repeated. Another word. Another label. I'm not emotional. I'm responding to inappropriate questions. There's a difference. Jennifer stood up now, too. Marcus, I think we're done here. Thank you for your time. No, Marcus said. He sat back down. I want to finish this interview. I want you to ask me real questions about the job, about financial analysis, about the actual work. That's not necessary, Jennifer said. Her professional mask was slipping. She looked frustrated. "We have enough information." "You have no information about my ability to do this job," Marcus said. "You've spent 40 minutes questioning everything except my actual qualifications." Brad walked toward the door. "This interview is over. We'll be in touch if we decide to move forward." "You won't be in touch," Marcus said. "We both know that. But I want to know why. I want you to say it out loud. What is it about me that doesn't fit your culture?" "We don't have to explain our hiring decisions," Brad said stiffly. "No, you don't," Marcus agreed. "But you should. Because right now this feels like discrimination, and that's illegal." Jennifer's face went pale. "Are you threatening us?" "I'm stating a fact," Marcus said. "Everything that's happened in this room has been inappropriate. The questions about where I'm from, how I got into college, whether I have agendas, whether clients will be comfortable with me, all of it." Sarah was shaking now. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Marcus almost felt bad for her. Almost. But she had sat there silent through the whole thing. She could have stopped it. She could have said something, but she chose not to. "I think you should leave," Jennifer said coldly. Marcus stood up. He picked up his portfolio. He looked at each of them one more time. Jennifer looked angry. Brad looked defensive. Sarah looked scared. "I'll leave," Marcus said. "But you should know that I'm not the first person this has happened to here. And if you keep interviewing people this way, I won't be the last. Eventually, someone is going to file a complaint. Eventually, you're going to face consequences." "Is that a threat?" Brad demanded. "It's a warning," Marcus said. He turned toward the door. His hand was on the handle when it opened from the outside. A woman stood there. She was older, maybe in her late 50s. She wore a dark suit and had gray hair cut short. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent, and she looked angry. "Don't leave yet, Mr. Williams," the woman said. Her voice was quiet but commanding. "I'd like to speak with all of you." Jennifer's face went white. "Ms. Morrison, we weren't expecting you." "Clearly," the woman said. "Ms. Morrison." Marcus didn't know who she was, but Jennifer and Brad clearly did. They both looked terrified. The woman stepped into the room. She looked at each person carefully. Her gaze lingered on Marcus last. "Mr. Williams, I'm Patricia Morrison. I'm the CFO of Sterling Financial Group, and I owe you an apology." Patricia Morrison closed the door behind her with a quiet click. The sound seemed loud in the silent conference room. Nobody moved. Jennifer and Brad looked like children caught doing something wrong. Sarah had gone completely still, her pen frozen above her notepad. Marcus stood by the door, his portfolio still in his hand, not sure what was happening. "Please sit down, Mr. Williams," Patricia said. It wasn't a request. It was the kind of statement that people followed without thinking. Marcus sat. Patricia walked to the head of the conference table. She didn't rush. She moved with the kind of confidence that came from years of authority. When she reached the head of the table, she didn't sit. She stood there, her hands resting on the back of the chair, and looked at each person in the room. "How long have I been standing outside this door?" she asked. Nobody answered. "I'll tell you. About 20 minutes. Long enough to hear quite a lot of this interview." Jennifer found her voice first. "Ms. Morrison, we were just conducting a standard interview to assess cultural fit and—" "Stop talking," Patricia said quietly. Jennifer's mouth snapped shut. "I'm going to tell you what I heard. Then you're going to listen. You won't interrupt me. Do you understand?" Jennifer nodded. Brad nodded. Sarah looked like she might cry. Patricia's eyes moved to Marcus. "Mr. Williams, I'm going to discuss what happened in this room. You have every right to leave if you want to, but I hope you'll stay and hear what I have to say." Marcus nodded slowly. He was still processing who this woman was. The CFO. That meant she was one of the most powerful people in the company, and she had been standing outside listening. "I was walking past this conference room on my way to a meeting," Patricia began. "I heard voices. Normally I wouldn't stop. But something about the tone made me pause. So I listened, and what I heard made me cancel my meeting." She looked directly at Jennifer. "I heard you ask Mr. Williams how he really ended up at Harvard." The emphasis on really was clear. You weren't asking about his application process. You were implying that his admission wasn't legitimate. Jennifer started to speak, but Patricia held up one hand. "I said don't interrupt me." Patricia's gaze moved to Brad. "I heard you ask whether Mr. Williams had actually done the work on his resume, or if he was part of diversity initiatives." You asked this about a man with 5 years of experience at a top consulting firm. A man with an MBA from Harvard. A man who led a team that saved $15 million for a client. What exactly made you question whether he did that work? Brad's face was red now. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I heard you both question whether clients would be comfortable with him, Patricia continued. Her voice was getting colder. I heard you ask about his communication style 3 separate times. I heard you use words like aggressive and emotional. I heard you tell him that some clients have expectations about who they work with. She paused. The silence in the room was heavy. And Ms. Chen, Patricia said, turning to Sarah, I heard you say almost nothing. As the HR representative in this room, you had a responsibility to stop what was happening. You didn't. You sat there and took notes while 2 recruiters violated every principle of fair hiring that this company claims to follow. Sarah's hands were shaking. A tear ran down her cheek. I'm sorry, she whispered. You're not sorry yet, Patricia said. But you will be. She finally sat down. She folded her hands on the table in front of her and looked at Marcus. Mr. Williams, I've been CFO of this company for 8 years. Before that, I worked my way up through the finance division for 12 years. I've interviewed hundreds of candidates. I've sat through countless hiring meetings. And what I heard today was the worst interview I've ever witnessed. Marcus didn't know what to say. He had been preparing to leave. To add Sterling Financial Group to the list of companies that looked good on the outside but had problems on the inside. Now the CFO was sitting here telling him she knew it was wrong. I want to be clear about something, Patricia continued. What happened in this room wasn't just inappropriate. It was illegal. It was discrimination based on race. And it exposed this company to serious legal liability. Jennifer made a small sound. Patricia ignored her. Let me explain what should have happened in this interview, Patricia said. She pulled Marcus's resume toward her. You have a bachelor's degree in economics from Stanford, top 10% of your class. You have an MBA from Harvard with a focus on corporate finance. You have 5 years of experience at Whitman Consulting, where you were promoted twice. You led 3 major restructuring projects. Your recommendations are exceptional. One of them is from David Chen, who I know personally. David doesn't give recommendations lightly. She looked up from the resume. Those qualifications should have led to questions about your financial modeling skills, your experience with different industries, your knowledge of risk assessment, your approach to client relationships, your understanding of market trends. Instead, you got questions about where you're from and how you got into college. Brad finally spoke. Ms. Morrison, we were trying to assess whether he was black enough to make you uncomfortable but qualified enough that you couldn't reject him outright. Patricia finished. Is that what you were assessing? That's not fair, Brad protested. Fair? Patricia's voice was sharp now. You want to talk about fair? Mr. Williams sat in this room for 45 minutes answering questions that had nothing to do with his ability to do this job. Questions that you would never ask a white candidate. And you're concerned about what's fair to you? She stood up again. Both of you are suspended effective immediately. You'll leave this building within the hour. HR will contact you about the investigation. And Ms. Chen, you're going to have a very long meeting with our legal team this afternoon. You can't just suspend us, Jennifer said. Her voice was rising. We have rights. The recruiters' union will review the recording of this interview, Patricia said. Because this conference room has audio recording. It's in the employee handbook. Every room in this building is recorded for legal and training purposes. So yes, everything that was said here is on tape. Do you really want to go to the union with that? Marcus's eyes widened. The room was recorded. Everything was documented. Every inappropriate question. Every coded phrase. Every hint of discrimination. It was all captured. Jennifer's face had gone from pale to gray. There's a recording? There's always a recording, Patricia said. How do you think I knew exactly what to quote back to you? I wasn't just listening at the door. I was also reviewing the recording on my phone. She pulled her phone from her pocket and set it on the table. I have the entire interview right here, and I've already sent it to our legal department and to HR leadership. So when I say you're suspended, I mean you're suspended. When I say there will be an investigation, I mean there will be an investigation. And when I say this is serious, I mean it could end your careers. Brad stood up quickly. His chair rolled back and hit the wall. This is ridiculous. We were doing our jobs. We were trying to protect the company from bad hires. Bad hires? Patricia's voice was dangerously quiet. Is that what you call one of the most qualified candidates we've seen this year? What exactly made him a bad hire, in your opinion? Brad didn't answer. He knew any answer would be wrong. Let me tell you what bad hires are, Patricia said. Bad hires are recruiters who let their prejudices affect their judgment. Bad hires are people who expose this company to lawsuits. Bad hires are people who drive away talented candidates because they can't see past skin color. She pointed to the door. Both of you leave. Now. Go to your offices, collect your personal items, and leave the building. Security will escort you out. Your access cards will be deactivated within the hour. Jennifer stood up slowly. She looked like she wanted to say something else. But one look at Patricia's face stopped her. She gathered her papers with shaking hands and walked to the door. Brad followed her. They both left without another word. Sarah was still sitting there, tears streaming down her face now. Ms. Morrison, I didn't know what to do. I should have said something. I know I should have. But they're senior to me and I was afraid. Afraid of what? Patricia asked. Her voice was softer now, but still firm. Afraid of doing your job? Afraid of standing up for what's right? That's not an excuse, Miss Chen. That's a confession of failure. Sarah nodded miserably. I know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You'll meet with legal at 2 o'clock, Patricia said. They'll determine what consequences are appropriate. For now you can go. Sarah stood up. She looked at Marcus. I really am sorry, she said quietly. Then she left too. The room was silent now. Just Marcus and Patricia Morrison. Marcus still wasn't sure what to think. Part of him was relieved. Someone in authority had seen what happened and called it wrong. But another part of him was angry. Angry that it happened in the first place. Angry that it took the CFO overhearing the interview for anyone to do anything. How many other interviews had gone like this with no one listening? Patricia sat down in the chair next to Marcus, not at the head of the table. It felt less formal, less like a power play. Mr. William, she said, I owe you an apology on behalf of Sterling Financial Group. What happened here today was unacceptable. It violated our policies. It violated the law. And it violated basic human decency. Marcus found his voice. How often does this happen? Patricia was quiet for a moment. I don't know, she admitted. And that's a problem. I'd like to tell you this is the first time. But I'd be lying. This is just the first time I've caught it. So there might be other people, Marcus said. Other candidates who went through interviews like this and nobody knew. Yes, Patricia said simply. And that needs to change. But right now I need to focus on what happened to you. She looked at him directly. Her eyes were serious but not unkind. You have every right to file a complaint, to sue this company, to go to the media. Whatever you decide to do, I'll understand. And I'll make sure you have access to any documentation you need, including the recording of this interview. Marcus hadn't thought that far ahead. He had been focused on getting through the interview, then on defending himself, then on leaving. Now he was being offered evidence and support from the CFO herself. Why are you doing this? He asked. Because it's right, Patricia said, and because I'm tired of watching talented people be driven away from this company by prejudice. I've seen it too many times. I've heard too many stories. I've made too many excuses. Today I heard it with my own ears, and I'm not going to excuse it anymore. She leaned back in her chair. I came to Sterling Financial Group 20 years ago. I was one of 3 women in the entire finance division. People questioned whether I could handle the pressure, whether I could make tough decisions, whether I was too emotional for the job. Every step up the ladder I had to prove myself twice as much as the men around me. Marcus understood. Different form of discrimination, but the same root cause. People making assumptions based on who you are instead of what you can do. I promised myself that if I ever had power in this company, I'd use it to make things better. Patricia continued. I haven't done enough. I see that now. But today I can do something. Today, I can make sure that what happened to you doesn't just disappear. She pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my direct number. My cell phone. If you decide you want to pursue this legally, call me. I'll cooperate fully. If you decide you want to talk to the press, I'll confirm everything. And if you decide you just want to walk away and never think about Sterling again, I'll understand that too. Marcus took the card. He looked at it, then at her. What if I wanted to finish the interview? The real interview, the one about the actual job. Patricia raised her eyebrows. You still want the position? I want to be interviewed properly, Marcus said. I want to be asked real questions. I want to be judged on my qualifications, not my skin color. Patricia studied him for a long moment. You're tougher than I thought. Most people would have walked away. I've walked away before, Marcus said, from other companies. Other opportunities. I'm tired of walking away. I'm tired of letting them win. A small smile crossed Patricia's face. All right, Mr. Williams, let's do a real interview. Patricia Morrison pulled Marcus's resume closer and read it carefully. Really read it. Not just glanced at it like Jennifer and Brad had done. She took her time. Marcus watched her eyes move across the page. He could see her making mental notes, forming real questions about his experience. The Henderson portfolio restructuring, she said finally. That was complex. Multiple debt instruments, overlapping creditors, and a tight timeline, if I remember correctly. You know about it? Marcus was surprised. I know David Chen, Patricia said. He mentioned that project when we had lunch a few months ago. He said one of his analysts did exceptional work on it.
That was you?
Marcus nodded. It was my project for about 8 months. Henderson Manufacturing was facing bankruptcy. They had 3 different types of debt, all coming due within 6 months of each other. The interest payments alone were killing them. Walk me through your approach, Patricia said. She leaned forward, genuinely interested. This was what a real interview felt like. Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. First, I analyzed all their debt instruments to understand the terms and priorities. Then I modeled different scenarios for restructuring. The key was convincing the senior creditors to accept a temporary reduction in interest payments in exchange for better security on their loans. How did you convince them? Patricia asked. Senior creditors don't usually volunteer to take less money. I showed them the alternative, Marcus explained. If Henderson went into bankruptcy, the senior creditors would be tied up in court for years. They'd eventually get paid, but legal fees would eat up a significant portion, and there was risk that a judge might not rule in their favor. By accepting my restructuring plan, they got better security and a clearer path to full repayment. Patricia nodded. And the junior creditors? They got equity, Marcus said. They converted part of their debt into ownership shares. It was risky for them, but Henderson's underlying business was solid. They just had a debt problem, not an operations problem. I convinced them that owning part of a healthy company was better than owning debt from a bankrupt one. Did it work? Patricia asked, though Marcus suspected she already knew the answer. Henderson emerged from the restructuring 6 months later, Marcus said. Their debt service dropped by 40%. They started being profitable again within a year. The junior creditors who took equity actually made money when Henderson grew. And you managed this project? Patricia asked. The whole thing? I led a team of 4 analysts, Marcus confirmed. But yes, I was responsible for the strategy and the negotiations. David Chen supervised me, but the day-to-day work was mine. Patricia made a note on a pad of paper she had pulled from her briefcase. What about risk assessment? That's a big part of this position at Sterling. How do you approach evaluating risk in investment decisions? Finally, a real question about the actual job. Marcus felt himself relaxing more. Risk assessment needs to be both quantitative and qualitative. I start with the numbers. What are the financial metrics? What does the data show? But numbers don't tell the whole story. Give me an example, Patricia said. Marcus thought for a moment. At Whitman, I evaluated a potential investment in a tech startup. On paper, the numbers looked great. Strong growth, good margins, promising market. But when I dug deeper, I found problems. The growth was coming from just 3 major clients. If any of them left, the whole business model would collapse. What did you recommend? Patricia asked. I recommended against the investment, Marcus said. My supervisor wasn't happy. The commission on that deal would have been significant. But I showed him the risk analysis. 3 clients was not a sustainable business model. He eventually agreed. And what happened to the startup? Patricia was testing him. It lost 2 of those 3 clients within 6 months, Marcus said. It's not in business anymore. If we had invested, we would have lost everything. Patricia nodded, clearly impressed. So you're willing to make unpopular recommendations when the analysis supports it? That's the job, Marcus said. If I just tell people what they want to hear, I'm not doing my job properly. Good financial analysis sometimes means delivering bad news. Tell me about a time you were wrong, Patricia said. A decision you made that didn't work out the way you expected. Marcus appreciated the question. It was honest. Everyone made mistakes. The key was learning from them. In my second year at Whitman, I recommended an investment in a manufacturing company. The financials were solid. The market was good. Everything looked right. But I underestimated how quickly their industry was changing. What happened? Patricia asked. New technology came into the market faster than anyone predicted, Marcus explained. Within a year, their main product was obsolete. We didn't lose money because we got out early, but we didn't make money either. It was basically a wash. What did you learn? Patricia asked. To pay more attention to market trends and technology changes, Marcus said. Financial statements show you where a company has been. They don't always show you where the market is going. Now I spend more time researching industry trends and talking to experts about future developments. Patricia made another note. The position here at Sterling involves working with investment portfolios for high net worth clients. These are people with significant assets who expect expert advice. How do you approach client relationships? I listen first, Marcus said. Every client has different goals and different risk tolerance. Some want aggressive growth. Some want stable income. Some want to preserve wealth for their children. You can't give good advice if you don't understand what the client actually needs. And if a client wants something that you think is a bad idea? Patricia asked. I explain why I think it's a bad idea, Marcus said. I show them the data. I explain the risks. But ultimately, it's their money. If they still want to proceed after hearing my professional opinion, that's their choice. My job is to give them the best information possible, not to make decisions for them. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Tell me about your experience with portfolio diversification. That's crucial for the clients we serve. Marcus was grateful to talk about actual finance instead of defending his qualifications. Diversification is about balancing risk across different asset classes and sectors. You don't want all your investments to move in the same direction at the same time. If they do, you're exposed to systemic risk. Give me a practical example, Patricia said. Let's say a client has $5 million to invest, Marcus began. If they put it all in tech stocks, they might see great returns when the tech sector is doing well. But if tech crashes, they lose everything. Better to spread it across different sectors. Tech, healthcare, manufacturing, real estate, bonds. That way, if one sector struggles, the others can compensate. What percentage would you put in each sector? Patricia asked. It depends on the client's goals and risk tolerance, Marcus said. A young client with 30 years until retirement can afford more risk. Maybe 60% stocks, 40% bonds. An older client who needs income now might want 40% stocks, 60% bonds, and dividend-paying investments. Patricia nodded. And international diversification? Also important, Marcus said. The U.S. market represents about 40% of global market value. If you only invest in U.S. companies, you're missing 60% of the opportunities. Of course, international investing has additional risks like currency fluctuations and political instability, but the diversification benefits usually outweigh those risks. They talked for another 30 minutes. Patricia asked about Marcus's experience with different financial instruments, his understanding of market cycles, his approach to rebalancing portfolios, his knowledge of tax-efficient investing strategies. These were all real questions. Questions about skills and knowledge. Questions that any qualified candidate would be asked regardless of their race. Marcus found himself enjoying the conversation. This was what he had prepared for. This was what he was good at. He could talk about finance all day. He had strong opinions based on research and experience. He could back up everything he said with data and examples. Patricia finally closed her notebook. Mr. Williams, you're clearly qualified for this position. Overqualified, actually. Your experience and education exceed our standard requirements. Thank you, Marcus said. But I need to be honest with you about something. Patricia continued. What happened earlier today is going to have consequences. Jennifer and Brad will likely be terminated. There will be an investigation. There might be news coverage if this becomes public. Some people in this company will see you as the person who got their colleagues fired. Marcus had thought about this. I didn't do anything wrong. They did. I agree completely, Patricia said. But people don't always see it that way. There might be resentment. There might be people who make your life difficult. That's not a reason to reject qualified candidates, Marcus said. No, it's not, Patricia agreed. But you should know what you might be walking into. This company has problems that go beyond two bad recruiters. I'm working to fix them, but change takes time. Marcus appreciated her honesty. Most companies would have hidden the problems. They would have pretended everything was fine after getting rid of the bad actors. Patricia was telling him the truth. Every company has problems, Marcus said. The question is whether they're willing to fix them. You just suspended 2 recruiters and you're standing here telling a candidate about the company's issues. That's more honesty than I've gotten anywhere else. Patricia smiled slightly. I'm too old to pretend anymore, and too tired of watching good people leave because of problems we could fix if we wanted to. She stood up and extended her hand. I'd like to offer you the position of senior financial analyst. The salary is $95,000 with full benefits. You'd start in our investment division under Thomas Crawford. He's one of the best portfolio managers in the business, and he's been asking for a strong analyst for months. Marcus stood and shook her hand. I'd like to accept, but I need some time to think about everything that happened today. Of course, Patricia said. Take all the time you need. The offer will remain open. Here's my direct number if you have questions. She handed him a business card, not the same one from before with her cell phone on it. This was her official business card with her office number and email. One more thing, Patricia said. Regardless of whether you accept this position, I want you to know that I'm going to make changes. New interview training, new hiring protocols, independent reviews of our recruitment process. What happened to you today is going to lead to real change in this company. Marcus believed her. There was something about Patricia Morrison that commanded trust. She didn't make promises lightly. When she said something would happen, it would happen. Thank you, Marcus said, for stepping in, for conducting a real interview, for being honest about the problems. Thank you for staying, Patricia replied. A lot of people would have left and filed a lawsuit. You gave me a chance to make this right? Marcus left the building 30 minutes later. His head was spinning. The morning had been the worst interview experience of his career, but it had ended with a job offer from the CFO herself. And not just job offer, a real offer based on his actual qualifications. He sat in his car for a long time before driving away. He thought about the questions Jennifer and Brad had asked. He thought about Sarah's silence. He thought about Patricia's intervention and her honest conversation afterward. He thought about whether Sterling Financial Group was really the kind of place he wanted to work, but he also thought about what Patricia had said. Every company has problems. The question is whether they're willing to fix them. At least at Sterling, someone at the top was willing to take action. That was more than he could say about some of the other places he had interviewed. Marcus started his car and drove home. He had a lot to think about, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like maybe things could change. Maybe one person standing up could make a difference. Maybe there were companies that would value his skills instead of questioning them. He didn't know yet if he would accept the offer, but he knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't forget what happened in that conference room. And neither would Sterling Financial Group. Marcus sat at his kitchen table that evening with his laptop open. He had been staring at the same email for 20 minutes. It was from Patricia Morrison, short and professional. It thanked him again for his time and reminded him that the offer was open. She had attached the formal offer letter with all the details. His phone rang. It was his mentor, David Chen. Marcus had worked with David at Whitman Consulting. David had been the one who recommended him for the Sterling position in the first place. Marcus, I just got a very interesting call, David said. From Patricia Morrison. She told me what happened today. Marcus closed his laptop. She called you? She wanted me to know, David said. And she wanted to apologize for putting you in that situation. She feels responsible because she approved your application. It's not her fault, Marcus said. She wasn't even in the interview until the end. That's what I told her, David said. But she's taking it seriously. She's already started an investigation. She asked me if you'd experienced anything similar at other companies. Marcus thought about his other interviews over the past 2 months. Some had been fine, professional and fair, but others had red flags. Questions that felt wrong. Comments that made him uncomfortable. Nothing as bad as Sterling, but problems nonetheless. Yeah, Marcus said. It happens. Usually it's more subtle. David was quiet for a moment. Marcus, I've known Patricia for 15 years. If she says she's going to make changes, she'll make changes. Sterling has problems, but they also have someone at the top who's willing to fix them. That's rare. I know, Marcus said. That's why I'm thinking about accepting. But, David could hear the hesitation in Marcus's voice. But I'm tired, David, Marcus admitted. I'm tired of having to prove myself twice as much. I'm tired of people questioning my credentials. I'm tired of wondering if every weird interaction is because of my race or just because people are awkward. I understand, David said. I really do. And I won't tell you what to decide. But I will tell you this. Change doesn't happen when good people walk away. It happens when good people stay and demand better. After they hung up, Marcus thought about David's words. He had walked away before. From a consulting firm that passed him over for promotion. From a financial services company that kept giving him the smallest clients. Walking away was easier. It meant not having to fight. Not having to be the person who made waves. But walking away also meant letting them win. It meant nothing would change for the next person. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from his younger brother, James. James was a college senior about to graduate with a degree in business. He was starting to apply for jobs. How did your interview go? James had texted. Marcus thought about how to respond. He could tell James the truth. About the inappropriate questions and the discrimination. About how exhausting it was to job hunt while black. But James was nervous enough about entering the workforce. Did Marcus want to add to that anxiety? He decided to call instead of text. James answered on the second ring. So? James asked. Did you get it? They offered me the position, Marcus said. But something happened during the interview. He told James everything. The questions about how he got into Harvard, the implications about quotas and agendas, the uncomfortable atmosphere, and then Patricia Morrison's intervention. James was quiet when Marcus finished. That sounds intense. It was, Marcus agreed. Are you going to take the job? James asked. I don't know yet, Marcus said. Part of me wants to walk away and never look back. But the CFO stepped in. She suspended the recruiters. She's making changes. So there are good people there, James said. At least one, Marcus replied. Maybe that's enough. What does your gut tell you? James asked. Marcus thought about it. His gut was conflicted. Part of him was angry and hurt. But another part of him was hopeful. Patricia had done the right thing without hesitation. She had apologized on behalf of the company. She had been honest about the problems instead of hiding them. My gut says give them a chance, Marcus said. But my head says be careful. Maybe listen to both, James suggested. The next morning, Marcus called Patricia Morrison's office. Her assistant answered and transferred him right away. Mr. Williams, Patricia said. Good to hear from you. Have you made a decision? I have some questions first, Marcus said. If that's okay. Of course, Patricia said. What would you like to know? You said you're making changes, Marcus began. What exactly does that mean? Patricia didn't hesitate. First, all recruiters and hiring managers will go through new training on bias and discrimination. Not just a one-time class, regular training, with testing to make sure they understand the material. Okay, Marcus said. What else? Second, we're implementing a new interview protocol, Patricia continued. All interviews will have at least 3 people present. One of them must be from HR. All interview questions will be standardized and job-related. No more vague questions about cultural fit. And the recordings? Marcus asked. All interview recordings will be reviewed by an independent team, Patricia said. Not just when there's a complaint. Regular random reviews to catch problems early. Marcus was impressed. These weren't just empty promises. These were specific, measurable changes. What about the people who work there now? Marcus asked. You said some might resent me because of what happened. That's a real concern, Patricia admitted. I won't lie to you. Some people won't be happy. But here's what I can tell you. Anyone who makes your life difficult because you reported discrimination will be fired. That's not a threat. That's a promise. And how will you know if someone's making my life difficult? Marcus asked. They won't do it, obviously. You'll have my direct line, Patricia said. And you'll meet with me once a month for your first 6 months. Not through your supervisor. Directly with me. If you're having problems, you'll tell me. That's unusual, Marcus said. This is an unusual situation, Patricia replied. Look, Mr. Williams, I'm not going to pretend everything will be perfect. Sterling has problems that go deeper than 2 bad recruiters. But I can promise you that I'm committed to fixing those problems. And I can promise you that if you come work here, you'll have my full support. Marcus took a deep breath. I want to accept the position, but I have some conditions. I'm listening, Patricia said. First, I want everything you just told me in writing, Marcus said. The new policies. The regular meetings. All of it. Done, Patricia said. What else? Second, I want to know what happened to Jennifer, Brad, and Sarah, Marcus said. I'm not looking for revenge, but I need to know there were real consequences. Jennifer and Brad were terminated yesterday, Patricia said. The investigation confirmed multiple violations of company policy and employment law. Sarah Chen is on a performance improvement plan. She'll undergo extensive training and will be closely supervised for the next 6 months. If she fails to improve, she'll be terminated as well. Marcus was surprised they had acted so quickly, but it made sense. The interview was recorded. The evidence was clear. There was no ambiguity about what had happened. Third, Marcus said, I want to be involved in developing the new training program. I want to make sure it actually addresses the problems. Patricia was quiet for a moment. That's a big ask. You'd be a new employee. Some people might not respond well to that. Then maybe those people are part of the problem, Marcus said. He heard Patricia laugh softly. You're right, okay. You'll be on the committee developing the new training. Along with me, the head of HR, and our legal counsel. Then I accept, Marcus said. Excellent, Patricia said. Can you start in 2 weeks? Yes, Marcus said. I just need to give notice at my current job. They talked for a few more minutes about logistics. Start date, paperwork, office location. When Marcus hung up, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time during a job search. He felt respected. He immediately called David Chen back. I accepted the Sterling position. Good, David said. I think you made the right choice. Patricia will take care of you. I hope so, Marcus said. I'm nervous, though. This could go badly. It could, David agreed. But it could also go really well. You could be part of real change. That's worth the risk. Marcus spent the next 2 weeks tying up loose ends at his current job. He told his colleagues he was leaving for a new opportunity. Some were happy for him. Others were curious about where he was going. He kept the details vague. He didn't want to explain what had happened at Sterling. Not yet. On his last day, his supervisor took him out for lunch. You're making a mistake, his supervisor said. Sterling is a mess. I've heard stories. Every company has stories, Marcus replied. But you're doing well here, his supervisor pressed. Why leave? Marcus thought about how to answer. Because here I've hit a ceiling. I've been doing the same level of work for 2 years. I'm ready for more responsibility. Sterling is offering that. His supervisor shook his head. Just be careful. Don't let them take advantage of you. Marcus almost laughed. After what he had been through in that interview, he wasn't worried about being taken advantage of. He was worried about being accepted, about being valued, about being judged on his work rather than his appearance. The night before his first day at Sterling, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about walking into that building, about seeing the 14th floor again, about sitting in conference rooms. Would people know what had happened? Would they treat him differently? His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Morrison. Welcome to Sterling. Looking forward to working with you. My door's always open. It was a simple message, but it helped. Marcus finally fell asleep around 2 a.m. When his alarm went off at 6:30, Marcus got up and got ready. He put on his best suit. Navy blue, perfectly tailored. He chose a red tie. Confident but not aggressive. He looked at himself in the mirror. You earned this, he told his reflection. You belong here. He arrived at Sterling's building at 8:15, early but not too early. The lobby looked the same as it had 2 weeks ago. The same shiny floors, the same modern furniture. But somehow it felt different. This time he wasn't a candidate. He was an employee. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt longer than he remembered. When the doors opened, he stepped out into the hallway. A woman was waiting for him. She was younger, maybe 30, with dark hair and a friendly smile. Marcus Williams? She asked. I'm Angela Tran, Thomas Crawford's executive assistant. I'll be showing you around today. Nice to meet you, Marcus said. As Angela led him down the hallway, Marcus noticed people looking at him. Some smiled. Some nodded. Some just stared. He wondered what they knew, what they had heard. But he kept his head up and his shoulders back. They passed conference room B. The door was closed. Marcus felt his stomach tighten for just a moment. But then they were past it and moving toward the other side of the floor. This is your office, Angela said, opening a door. It was small, but nice. A desk, a chair, a computer, and a window. Marcus had expected a cubicle. This was better. Thomas will meet with you at 9:30, Angela said. In the meantime, I'll get you set up with your computer access and security badge. Patricia Morrison wants to see you at 11:00. Marcus spent the next hour getting his technology set up and filling out paperwork. At 9:30, he met Thomas Crawford. Thomas was in his 50s with gray hair and glasses. He had a firm handshake and a no-nonsense attitude. I've read your file, Thomas said. Impressive work at Whitman. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do here. They talked about the investment portfolio Marcus would be managing, the clients he would work with, the expectations for the role. Thomas asked good questions. Professional questions about Marcus's experience and approach. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing uncomfortable. At 11, Marcus went to Patricia Morrison's office on the top floor. It was large and had windows overlooking the city. Patricia stood up when he entered. First day, she said. How's it going? Good so far, Marcus said honestly. Thomas seems great. He is, Patricia agreed. He's also one of the people I trust most in this company. He knows what happened with your interview. I told him personally. He was furious. He wanted to know why he wasn't allowed to interview you himself from the beginning. Marcus smiled. That's good to hear. Patricia sat down and gestured for Marcus to sit across from her. I wanted to check in with you. Make sure you're settling in, okay? And I wanted to give you this. She handed him a folder. Inside was everything she had promised. The new interview protocols, the training requirements, the schedule for their monthly meetings. All in writing, thank you, Marcus said. This is just the beginning, Patricia said. Change takes time. There will be bumps along the way. But I want you to know that I meant everything I said. You have my full support. Marcus looked at the folder, then at Patricia. Can I ask you something? Of course, she said. Why did you do this? Marcus asked. You could have just let me leave. You could have handled it quietly. Why did you step in so forcefully? Patricia was quiet for a moment. Because I've been letting things slide for too long. Telling myself that small changes would add up. That things would get better gradually. But they haven't. And when I heard what was happening in that interview, I realized I was part of the problem by not being part of the solution. She looked directly at Marcus. You deserved better than what happened in that room. And this company needs to do better. So I'm doing better. Starting with you, 3 months passed. Marcus settled into his role at Sterling Financial Group. His days were filled with analyzing portfolios, meeting with clients, and working with Thomas Crawford's team. The work was challenging and rewarding. He was doing exactly what he had trained for. But the beginning had not been easy. In his first week, Marcus noticed people whispering when he walked by. Some stopped talking when he entered rooms. He didn't know if they were talking about him specifically, or if he was just being paranoid. Either way, it made him uncomfortable. One afternoon in his second week, a senior analyst named Robert stopped by his office. Robert was in his 50s and had been with Sterling for 20 years. So you're the guy who got Jennifer and Brad fired, Robert said. He wasn't smiling. Marcus looked up from his computer. I'm the guy who was discriminated against. They got themselves fired. Robert crossed his arms. Jennifer was a friend of mine. She made a mistake. She didn't deserve to lose her job over it. She made multiple mistakes, Marcus corrected, over the course of an hour-long interview, and those mistakes violated employment law. Still, Robert said, people are saying you're going to be trouble, that you'll file complaints at the first sign of anything you don't like. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. I filed a complaint because I was treated unfairly. If people treat me professionally, there won't be any problems. But if they discriminate against me, yes, I'll report it. That's not being trouble. That's standing up for myself. Robert stared at him for a long moment, then walked away without another word. Marcus called Patricia that evening. It was after work hours, but she had told him to call any time. Robert Chen came to my office today, Marcus said. He's upset about Jennifer being fired. I'll talk to him, Patricia said immediately. No, Marcus said. Don't, I handled it. I just wanted you to know it happened. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? Yeah, Marcus said. It wasn't fun, but I'm okay. I knew this wouldn't be easy. If it happens again, let me know, Patricia said. It did happen again. Several times. Small comments. Cold shoulders. People who wouldn't meet his eyes in meetings. But there were also positive moments. Thomas Crawford praised his work in front of the team. A senior portfolio manager asked for his advice on a complex investment. A client specifically requested to work with him after their first meeting. Slowly, the atmosphere started to change. People got used to seeing Marcus around. His work spoke for itself. His analysis was sharp. His recommendations were sound. His client relationships were strong. It became harder for people to dismiss him as a diversity hire when he was consistently producing good results. In his third month, Marcus was invited to join the committee developing the new interview training program. The first meeting was in a large conference room with Patricia, the head of HR, the legal counsel, and 3 other employees. Patricia opened the meeting. Thank you all for being here. We're developing a new training program to ensure that what happened to Mr. Williams never happens again at Sterling. Marcus, would you like to share your perspective? Marcus had prepared for this. The problem with the interview I experienced was that the questions had nothing to do with the job. They were based on assumptions about me as a person, not evaluation of me as a candidate. Good interview questions should be standardized, job-related, and asked the same way to every candidate. The head of HR, a woman named Carol Martinez, nodded. We already have standardized questions for most positions. But clearly they're not being used consistently. Why not? Marcus asked. Carol looked uncomfortable. Because we've given hiring managers and recruiters too much flexibility. We told them the standardized questions were guidelines, not requirements. So some people ignored them and asked whatever they wanted. Then we need to make them requirements, Patricia said firmly. No more flexibility to ask inappropriate questions. If it's not on the approved list, it doesn't get asked. Over the next hour, they discussed specific changes. All interviews would be recorded and reviewed. All interviewers would complete mandatory training every 6 months. All candidates would receive information about the interview process in advance, and any complaints about discrimination would be investigated immediately by an independent team. Marcus contributed several ideas based on his own experience. He suggested that candidates should be told they could ask to have a question rephrased if it seemed inappropriate. He suggested that HR representatives should be empowered to stop interviews if they observed problems. He suggested anonymous surveys for all candidates, whether hired or not, to gather feedback on the interview process. By the end of the meeting, they had a solid plan. Patricia looked satisfied. This is good work. Marcus, thank you for your input. Your perspective has been invaluable. As people filed out of the conference room, Carol approached Marcus. Can I talk to you for a minute? Marcus nodded. When everyone else had left, Carol sat down across from him. I was the one who assigned Sarah Chen to your interview, Carol said. Her voice was heavy with regret. I should have sent someone more experienced. Someone who would have stopped what was happening. I'm sorry. Marcus appreciated the apology. Sarah made her own choices. She could have spoken up at any time. I know, Carol said, but I put her in a situation she wasn't ready for. That's on me. I want you to know that I'm committed to making sure this doesn't happen again. I believe you, Marcus said. I can see the work you're putting into this training program. Carol stood up to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, you're doing great work here. I've heard nothing but positive things from Thomas and his team. You earned your place here. After she left, Marcus sat alone in the conference room for a few minutes. He thought about the past 3 months. The difficulties, the doubts, the small victories. It hadn't been easy, but he had proven himself. Not just to the company, but to himself. His phone buzzed with a text from his brother James. How's the job going? Marcus smiled and typed back. It's going well. Really well. The next week, Marcus met with his first major client alone. The client was a retired executive named William Hampton. He had $5 million in investments with Sterling and was considering adding more. Marcus had prepared thoroughly. He reviewed William's entire portfolio. He researched his investment history. He developed several recommendations for rebalancing and diversification. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in one of Sterling's private client rooms. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early and set up his presentation materials. When William arrived, Marcus stood to greet him. William was in his 70s, white-haired and distinguished-looking. He shook Marcus's hand with a firm grip. You must be Marcus Williams. Thomas speaks highly of you. Thank you, sir, Marcus said. I'm looking forward to discussing your portfolio. They sat down and Marcus launched into his presentation. He walked through William's current investments. He pointed out areas of strong performance and areas of concern. He explained his recommendations clearly and supported them with data. William asked good questions. Tough questions. He challenged some of Marcus's assumptions and asked him to defend his reasoning. Marcus welcomed it. This was the kind of professional interaction he had trained for. After an hour, William leaned back in his chair. That's impressive analysis. You've clearly done your homework. Thank you, Marcus said. I take my client relationship seriously. I can see that, William said. He pulled out his phone and made a note. I'm going to follow your recommendations. All of them. And I'm going to be adding another $2 million to my portfolio. I'd like you to manage it. Marcus kept his expression professional, but inside he was celebrating. This was a significant vote of confidence. I'd be honored to manage those additional assets. As William was leaving, he paused at the door. Marcus, can I tell you something? Of course, Marcus said. I've been with Sterling for 15 years, William said. I've worked with a lot of analysts. You're one of the best I've met. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Marcus didn't know what to say. He just nodded. Thank you, sir. When William left, Marcus closed the door and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had done it. He had proven himself to a demanding client through nothing but the quality of his work. That afternoon, Thomas called Marcus into his office. I heard about your meeting with William Hampton. He called me right after. He was very impressed. I'm glad, Marcus said. Thomas smiled. He's not easy to impress. The fact that he's giving you an additional $2 million to manage says a lot. Good work. Thank you, Marcus said. I also wanted to talk to you about something else, Thomas continued. We're expanding the team. We need another senior analyst. I'd like you to help me interview candidates. Marcus was surprised. You want me to interview people? I've only been here 3 months. Exactly, Thomas said. You're fresh. You remember what a good interview looks like and what a bad interview looks like. I want your perspective. Marcus thought about it. This was an opportunity to make sure other candidates were treated fairly. To be part of the solution. I'd be happy to help. Over the next month, Marcus participated in 5 interviews for the senior analyst position. He made sure every question was professional and job-related. He made sure every candidate was treated with respect. When one interviewer started asking vague questions about cultural fit, Marcus redirected him to questions about actual skills. They eventually hired a woman named Jennifer Kim. She was young, talented, and had an impressive background. Marcus made sure she felt welcomed from day one. He remembered how hard his first weeks had been and wanted to make sure Jennifer had a better experience. 6 months after starting at Sterling, Marcus had his review meeting with Patricia Morrison. They met in her office with Thomas present. Marcus, you've exceeded expectations in every area, Patricia said. Your client satisfaction scores are the highest on the team. Your portfolio performance is strong. Your analysis is consistently excellent, and your contribution to the new training program has been invaluable. Thank you, Marcus said. We'd like to promote you to lead senior analyst, Thomas added. It comes with a salary increase and additional responsibilities. You'd be managing 2 junior analysts and taking on larger client portfolios. Marcus was stunned. A promotion after only 6 months was unusual. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Patricia said with a smile. Yes, Marcus said. Thank you. I'm honored. After the meeting, Marcus walked back to his office in a daze. 6 months ago, he had been sitting in a conference room being asked inappropriate questions about his race and qualifications. Now he was being promoted based on his performance. He called his mentor David Chen. They promoted me. Already? David laughed. That's faster than I expected, but not surprising. I told you Patricia would take care of you. She did. Marcus agreed. But more than that, she gave me an opportunity to prove myself. The rest was up to me. That evening, Marcus called his brother James. How's the job search going? Slow, James admitted. I've had 3 interviews. 1 was okay. 2 were kind of weird. Weird how? Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew. Just questions that felt off, James said. Questions about where I grew up, how I ended up at my college, whether I'd be comfortable working with their clients, that kind of thing. Marcus felt a familiar anger rise in his chest. His brother was experiencing the same things he had experienced. The same coded questions, the same implicit bias. What did you do? I answered professionally, James said. But I don't think I'll get those jobs. And honestly, I'm not sure I want them. Good, Marcus said. Don't accept jobs at places that don't respect you from the start. It doesn't get better later. But what if no one respects me? James asked quietly. Someone will, Marcus said firmly. There are good companies out there. Companies with people like Patricia who will judge you on your merit. Keep looking. Don't settle for less than you deserve. After they hung up, Marcus thought about how far he had come in 6 months. How much had changed. But he also thought about how much hadn't changed. His brother was still facing the same barriers. Other black professionals were still being questioned about their qualifications. The problem was bigger than one company, but Sterling was different now. The new training program was in place. The interview protocols were being followed. 3 candidates who had been rejected unfairly before the changes were being re-interviewed. And Marcus had heard through the grapevine that 2 hiring managers had been fired for violating the new policies. Change was happening. Slowly, but it was happening. A year after his first day at Sterling, Marcus was managing a team of 3 analysts and a portfolio of over $50 million. He had been featured in a financial industry magazine article about rising stars in investment management. He had spoken at a conference about portfolio diversification strategies. He had become exactly what he had worked so hard to become, a respected financial professional. But more than that, he had become an advocate for change. He continued to serve on the training committee. He mentored young professionals of color who were starting their careers. He spoke honestly about his experience when asked, not to complain but to educate. One day, Patricia called him into her office. "I wanted to show you something," she said. She handed him a report. It was data on Sterling's hiring practices over the past year. The number of diverse candidates had increased by 40%. The number of complaints about discriminatory interviews had dropped to 0. The retention rate for employees of color had improved significantly. "This is because of the changes we made," Patricia said. "Changes that started because you spoke up, because you demanded better, because you stayed and fought instead of walking away." Marcus looked at the numbers. Real measurable change. It wasn't perfect. There was still work to do, but it was progress. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this," Marcus said. "Thank you for taking that opportunity," Patricia replied. "A lot of people in your position would have just sued us and moved on. You chose to stay and make things better. That took courage." Marcus thought about that word. Courage. He didn't feel courageous. He had just refused to accept being treated unfairly. He had demanded the respect he deserved. And when someone in power offered to support him, he had taken that chance. Maybe that was courage. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear stop you from doing what was right. As Marcus left Patricia's office and walked back to his own, he passed conference room B. He paused for a moment and looked through the glass wall. There was an interview happening inside. 3 people sat at the table asking questions. One was from HR. The candidate, a young black woman, was answering with confidence. The interviewers were smiling and taking notes.